we have many very impressive people, and we could spend probably most of our time just talking about the bios of people like Jonathan. I will just say that he brings and has brought a extraordinary combination of private sector experience, having run and sold successful companies, and senior service in the Obama administration, to a tried and tested and crucially important civil rights and human rights organization in a time when it was needed most, and when he really has brought a entrepreneur's energy and zeal and vision to a historic organization, and it really is making a difference in the life of the country, and is, desperately needed, and has played a real critical role as we've sought to figure out our path forward from events like Pittsburgh and countless other things. So he's been at the helm for 3 years. We have some other valuable members of his leadership team here, and he's also, proud to say, my friend. So I want to just welcome him here and give him a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. That was very thoughtful, and I appreciate it. I do want to take a moment just to acknowledge there's so many people who've worked so hard to make this event possible, but I want to build on what Mike did earlier and just recognize the members of my staff. And he mentioned Erica, and he mentioned Ethan, and there are a number of other people in the room. Could all the ADL staff just stand up so I can sort of lead the applause for you, including you, Oren. I see you hiding back there. Tabari, everyone. So I think it's safe to say that we all are aware of the fact that we're coming together at what is best described as a polarizing and complicated time. At ADL, we're really excited to be a partner in this important project, and I feel, Mike, like you've given us a gift, the gift of your leadership and the gift of your experience. And I just want to acknowledge the leadership that you've brought to this. We wouldn't be here were it not for you. It was your vision, and you get the credit for converting what was such a challenging moment into this effort, which has so much possibility. So thank you, Mike, for your leadership. And in addition to my team, I want to acknowledge the staffs that have really curated this program and made it possible. And there are many of you here, and they're listed on the screen, but I'm still going to go through and thank the Center for American Progress, the Fetzer Institute, the Aspen Institute's Justice and Society Program, the Charles Koch Institute, Hope Not Hate, the National Immigration Forum, and Georgetown Law's Institute for Constitutional Advocacy and Protection. And I also want to thank the donors who supported this effort: the Charles Koch Institute, Fetzer, the Ford Foundation, the Kresge Foundation, Lowell and Eileen Aptman, and the Soros Fund Charitable Foundation. Thank you to all of our supporters. And of course, as Mike said, all of you who made a commitment to come from across the country to be here with us for the next few days, to brainstorm and to share best practices and to try to build together a path forward and how we deal with these challenges presented by extremism, not in some abstract, theoretical way, but at the local level. Whereas individuals of different genders, different faiths, different national origin, we come together as neighbors and as friends and as family and as fellow citizens. And I think that's why this project matters so much. So for those of you who might not be familiar, if you'll allow me, the ADL is a global anti-hate organization that's bound by a mission that was written out when we were founded 105 years ago, after the lynching of a Jewish man in the South. And when that man was lynched, when ADL was created, the mission that the founders laid out, we still follow today. It's to, quote, stop the defamation of the Jewish people and secure justice and fair treatment to all. So we have always believed, and we're going to talk about over the next few days, that our fate is bound up in the fate of others. That America would be best for its Jews when it would be best for all of its people. And that in being the best it could be for all of its people. So it would be good for us. We accomplish that work 3 ways. We do advocacy, education, and law enforcement. We do advocacy. We try to change laws in Congress or the courts or even the court of public opinion with a focus on protecting marginalized groups, the most vulnerable, the most needy, and preserving our constitutional rights, ensuring that there are truly civil rights and fairness for all Americans, no matter where you're from or how you pray or who you love. Secondly, we focus on education. We realized long ago you can't lobby or legislate your way out of hate. You've got to change hearts and minds. So over the years, ADL has developed anti-bias, anti-bullying, anti-hate content for kids. Today, our content reaches more than 2.7 million children, online and offline, in classrooms all over the country. And then finally, we work with law enforcement. We track hate crimes. Our research division helps investigate hate crimes. You're going to hear from Oren Siegel, the director of our Center on Extremism, shortly. And we train law enforcement. The ADL is the largest trainer of law enforcement in the United States on issues of extremism and hate. We train 15,000 officers a year, from the FBI and the NYPD, on what's a hate crime, what does extremism look like, and how do we deal with it at the local level. Now, we get this work done through a network of 25 offices. So we show up at the retail level in New Orleans, in Detroit, in New York, in Atlanta, and in communities again across this country. But we recognize that we can't do this work alone. You know, politicians can talk about building walls, but ultimately we need to build bridges. We need to create coalitions, and we need to come together, people from diverse backgrounds, if we really hope to make progress on our toughest problems. And so following the Unite the Right rally, you know, Mike and I spoke just after, and we work with partners to build coalitions and promote the fundamental principles of justice and equality that we needed to remind ourselves of in those difficult days. And I want to thank one person in particular in this room, Laura Waxman, the Director of Public Safety for the U.S. Conference of Mayors, for their outstanding leadership in the fight against bigotry and discrimination and hate. Thank you, Laura, and thank you to everyone at the conference. Now, I wish we could say what happened in Charlottesville was an isolated incident, but our nation has witnessed a rise of hate, an outbreak of violence since then. You know, I spent time earlier this month in Pittsburgh, where, of course, we saw the murder of 11 Jewish worshipers in a synagogue, the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in the history of this country. And let me tell you, attending funerals and sitting with grieving parents and holding the hands of people who were literally weeping in the streets is something that will stay with me for a very long time. We also shouldn't lose sight of the fact that that happened just days after the murder of 2 African-American people in Kentucky, and the slaying of 2 women at a yoga studio in Florida. In response to these incidences of hate that were directed at people because of where they worshiped, again, or how they looked, or what their gender happened to be, ADL mourned, but we also mobilized. And we organized with civil rights partners across this country to come together to think about how can we, again, rebuild those bonds of trust which we were seeing being violated with violence in community after community. And I think it was crucial work, and the work goes on. And that's why we're here this weekend, to plan and share, because the work goes on. And we've got to look at ways not just to respond to hate when it happens, but to interrupt it in advance, to disrupt it before it develops. It's a critical part of this work. I think we're here to ensure that those who are impacted by hate have the best support that they can to heal. Because as we fight hate, the healing, as Mike alluded to, is a critical dimension of how we create a stronger communities and a more resilient society. But I am going to do something that Mike said, he said there isn't a 5-point plan to fix this. I agree with that. There is no silver bullet. There is no magic wand that we can wield that will suddenly put the genie back in the bottle. But I do want to give you 3 ideas, 3 things that we're focused on at ADL, and maybe this will help seed the conversation over the next few days and as early as tonight. I think we need policy, products, and practice. So first, I think we need better policy. At the federal level, we want Congress to pass legislation to make sure that law enforcement officers not only are trained up to understand how to deal with extremism, but they also understand how to deal with issues of implicit bias and treat marginalized communities, particularly communities of color, with the respect that they deserve. And at the state level, I don't think it's too much to ask that every state in this country should have comprehensive hate crimes laws on the books. Today, 5 states don't have it, including South Carolina, where we saw the vicious murder at the AME Baptist Church in the summer of 2015, including the state of Wyoming, where we saw the murder of Matthew Shepard just a few years ago, and we have a federal hate crimes law that bears his name. And at the local level, we want mayors, and we'll be speaking about this, to ensure that every school in this country has anti-bias training. There are things we can do at the policy level to stop this. Secondly, we need better products. I'm an ex-Silicon Valley person, truth be told. I've run businesses there, I've managed teams there, I've sold companies there. Silicon Valley has brought so much to this country, and social media in particular has created connections. But I think we also see that they're a big part of the problem, and it's time for them to be part of the solution. For starters, we want to see social media companies enforce their own terms of service with ruthless consistency to ensure that they allow for free speech, but free speech is not the freedom to slander people. The freedom of expression is not the freedom to incite violence. They have rules, they should enforce it to make sure that it's not just about what users say, but their own safety. And secondly, beyond enforcing their own policies, it is long overdue for these companies to improve their products, to engineer their algorithms, and harness innovations like AI to stop the flow of bigotry. That's why we've opened an office in Silicon Valley, and we're working directly with these companies. We need to engage them and get them from the sidelines onto the playing field. But in addition to policy and products, we also need better practices. In particular, I would say, we need our leaders to lead. Whether you're the president of the United States, or you're the president of a university, or you're the president of a PTA, we need our leaders to lead and push back against harmful rhetoric and not allow minorities, not allow people on the margins to be victimized because of their faith, their race, their gender, their sexual orientation, or their national origin. It is simply unacceptable in this moment that our elected officials should equivocate on intolerance. But I'm guessing you all know this because you're here. That's why you showed up. Because leaders at all levels lead. But while I think I've mentioned what we need, I also just want to close by mentioning what we don't need. I think it's notable that we have, over the next 2 days, we're going to hear from John Danforth, a career Republican, and Mike Signer, a rising Democrat. That we have funders in this room, people sitting with us now, who might give more liberally or might give more conservatively. This effort is a testament to the fact that values are more important than votes. So what we don't need in this room are politics. That doesn't mean we don't need politicians of conviction, don't get me wrong. But don't let anyone tell you that fighting prejudice is a partisan thing. Don't let anyone tell you that standing up for principle is somehow political. I don't buy that. I don't think we should buy that. And if we are going to indeed overcome extremism, the country needs to get past that idea because it distracts us from the task at hand. So one more time, I really want to thank all of you for coming together and being with us. I want to thank Mike for giving us the privilege of being a part of this important project. And I'm optimistic that over the next few days we'll make progress, truly, we'll make progress toward overcoming extremism and creating a path forward that will benefit all of us, our communities, and the country. Thank you.